So a lot of people are telling me that you should strive to have a successful, happy marriage. What does that mean? What does that look like? What does it mean to pursue a happy, successful marriage? First of all, a happy, successful marriage is one that is centered around the Almighty God. We all have incentives to get married. It could be a financial incentive, it could be an emotional incentive, a psychological incentive, a social incentive, a physical incentive. And that's the beauty of marriage, is that it fulfills multiple needs. But the main incentive of a Muslim, of a believer, in marrying is for the sake of God. Make this commitment, make this oath with Allah. Oh God, I know marriage offers many benefits, but I am marrying for your sake, because you have recommended us human beings to get married. That's the sunnah and the path of your Prophet ﷺ. When you marry with the intention of having God in mind and centering your life and marriage around God, that in itself ensures that you'll have a successful and happy marriage. A marriage that's based on the love of God, on dedication to God, is a long-lasting marriage. Other incentives can go. Maybe one day your needs are not being met in the marriage. That does happen sometimes. Some needs are not fulfilled. And then you ask yourself, why am I in this relationship? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always there. And you started with Him, you'll continue with Him. That's one very important point when it comes to ensuring a healthy and successful marriage. Secondly, to ensure a successful, healthy marriage, or when you hear about a successful, healthy marriage, keep this point in mind, that marriage is a mutual relationship. It's a relationship that's based on mutual respect. Your spouse has respect. Your spouse is a human being, and your spouse's needs are not any less important than your needs. Unfortunately, some of us enter a marriage really with the expectation somewhere back in our heads that I'm going to be a king who's going to be served. Marriage is not a place where you go and get served. That's very selfish. And that in itself is recipe for failure in your marital life. Yes, marriage is beautiful and it offers you a lot of benefits. But in the end, marriage is an institution that you build together with your spouse. See your spouse as a partner, not as someone who's serving you. This is a fundamental point to keep in mind. The third point that I'll share with you in ensuring that marriage is successful is for you to always be concerned about what works, not who's right or who's wrong. Oftentimes when we get into marital disputes, let's say I think that I'm right and my spouse is wrong. Let's say she really is wrong, right? Sometimes it's the case that one spouse is taking the irrational path or is wrong, and one spouse is really oppressing the other one or is not being fair. Let's say that is the case. But the important question to ask is, what works? Because if you want to insist, no, I'm right and he's wrong, she's wrong, that's not going to solve the problem. If you say it 1,000,000 times to your spouse, you're wrong, your spouse may not change. You have to work on what works. Okay, I'm right, she's wrong, fine. But how do I address the situation now? Let me work out a solution. Let me see what works. Even if I'm right, even if my position was right, even if my stance was right. But in the end, what works? What will make my spouse change? What if I change a few things and let go and I sacrifice? Even though I have some entitlements, but what if I sacrifice them and then my spouse will be encouraged to change? That is recipe for a successful marriage. When you focus on what works, not necessarily who's right and who's wrong and what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes that won't get you anywhere.